Somewhat. All right, we're live.
Good morning for a Freaky Friday.
Yes, good morning for a Freaky Friday. Crank the, yeah, there you go. Because we don't want to wind up in copyright jail or anything like that. Good morning, Michael. How are you?
And for those 5 seconds, that was the great late King Curtis on the tenor saxophones doing Wider Shade of Pale. And I'm coming back from an unexpected cold. I'm milking it for all it's worth, wearing the scarf, looking rough in the morning. And if I have to blow my nose, forgive me. I've been producing more liquids from my sinuses than any other man in Christendom.
Well, that could be a little more information than we all want to know, but I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's
The cards and letters were coming in, wondering about that, Vin, as you know.
yeah. Lots of people are asking me what the heck is going on with Michael. He's spurting phlegm from his ears.
I don't mean to offend. So I guess I got a cold from the so-called bomb cyclone that has hit California. Did you get a bomb cyclone in your neighborhood?
No, we did not. We've had, today is the first gray day that we've had in a couple of days. So we've actually been north of the bomb cyclone. I understand in Oregon and Northern California, it's been just nasty.
If you remember the Taj Mahal, the miniature Taj Mahal houseboat that was in Sausalito at the edge of the that was destroyed in the storm, in high winds and high surf, and it sank. It couldn't maintain. It wasn't made. It was meant to float innocently and look like the Taj Mahal and be somebody's house. And now it's part of Davy Jones's Sausalito locker.
Well, they'll pull that up again, though, won't they? I would think, because it's probably.
I think they'll have to. You can't just leave it there.
Is the I don't even know if the there was a ferry that I went to several parties on, an old ferry that was docked there.
The Charles Van Dam.
Yes. Is that though? I forget the name of it, but I think that, I don't think there were too many of them there, but that was, and I think that wound up sinking, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it sat there in the mud for a century or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And Juanita had her restaurant there, and there was music there at night, and there was a whole host of people who used to live up in the captain's tower. And who Charles Van Dam was, I don't know, but he was so much more famous after death, after a boat was named after him, a ferry boat. Speaking of ferries, speaking of the high winds and water that we've had, the Larkspur Ferry left Marin County, went to San Francisco, and could not dock because of high surf and high wind and high waves. They had to go back, take their passengers back to Marin. No docking at the ferry building because of the inclement weather and rough seas.
Well, you're getting tornadoes in Southern California. I believe 2 of them touched down.
It was one north of us in Carpinteria, which is a little town near Santa Barbara.
I know Carpinteria well.
One south of us in a section of Los Angeles County called Montebello, the beautiful mountain. Well, the mountain remained beautiful, but the twisters came in and in selective neighborhoods just tore the hell out of everything. Once when I was a reporter, I covered a story that's similar to this in a neighborhood south of the airport down here, LAX, called Westminster. And they had what they called microbursts, where out of a clear blue sky, the conditions would be right for a small mini tornado to, blow over somebody's cement fence and take out a swimming pool or something. But this was more extensive than that. And in fact, the whole country is tornado mad. There's a whole section from Shreveport to Memphis this morning. 15 million people at risk from tornadoes in advance. As the Republican Party hunkers down and says that the hoax that is known as global warming is nothing more than a dangerous hoax, something to play on your mind, nothing to be concerned about in the real world. This is only the world that the Republicans live in, which is alternate, parallel, and insufficient in its means to ascertain truth from fiction.
Well, tell that to people whose houses, left like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, I haven't totaled it up, and I have no research to back this up except my gut feeling. But doesn't it seem to you that we have spent more on disaster relief due to climate change than we would have if we started to really address the problem in a in an organized and salient, knowledgeable way, instead of half of the country sitting up and saying, "Ah, it's just bull crap." It's not. I mean, obviously something's going on. Something's not right. It's not
But
just the normal course of events.
the American way, though, Vinny, is to lie about it. It started with the tobacco companies. There's nothing wrong with our cigarettes. They pose no threat to you whatsoever in terms of health. Then the gas companies, no, we're not polluting the sky. We're not polluting the the areas where we're drilling. We're not polluting anything with our cast lines, and we can prove that we're lying. I'm sorry. We can prove that we're telling you the truth. Just simply follow us into the woods, and we'll show you that the pipeline is innocent. And then that translated from corporate lying to political lying, and we don't want the truth about anything anymore. In fact, the truth is the one thing that get Tom Cruise on the line. It's the one thing, and Jack Nicholson too. It's the one thing we can't stand. It's the one thing we can't confront. And the truth to 30 to 40% of our population, Vinny, is so menacing to their existence that they will do anything but admit it, including presidential elections, weather formations, who's on what football team. It's all the subject of a good lie to make us feel comfortable or outraged enough to take the opposite position. But please do not, under any circumstances, even on a Freaky Friday with Mikey and Vinny, please do not tell me the truth.
Well, someday, somehow, some way, they have to see the truth. You see, the problem is if they weren't just weren't telling you the truth, and were to be happy, were happy to be just going on their way after they didn't tell you the truth, you would treat them like the typical preacher that stands on a soapbox somewhere by the end of the cable car line there by Woolworths, or where Woolworths used to be, and hollers the end of the world is coming and holds up a sign and and has a little cup in front of it you toss dollars into.
I like the
But
old Woolworths when they had the hardwood floors, the dark hardwood floors that were in all the stores.
oh yeah, and they would have that creak when you walked on them. There was a
Yes.
certain creak, and the creak was different. It's funny you mentioned this. I was thinking about this last night. It's so weird that you mentioned this. Um, the creek was different in different parts of the store. Like
Yeah.
if you went into the house, the notions section, where the sewing stuff was and everything,
Yeah.
it was a different creek than if you went into the um, toy department. In the toy department for these places usually was a long counter with bins in it that had a lot of toys for 5 and 10 cents.
Yes. And you had to
You know,
handle them all. You had to get a feel of it.
yeah, you could take your quarter allowance or 50 cents allowance and go out there and come home with something, including a cherry phosphate and a toy soldier.
Well, the floor in the kids department was worn out by kids like us. The
Right.
floor in the sewing department was worn out by grandmas.
And if you went in the school supply department, you didn't hear any creaks. I don't want to go there. Maybe by the poster board, Remember, you get that day in school you had but it was so funny because I was just thinking about this five and dime that we used to have by my house called McLaren's, and it was the same setup as the Woolworths. Um, and these two ladies that used to run it. There was Martha, who was a big, tall woman, tall and thin woman, and Franny, who was a short Italian woman. And they
Mutt and
couldn't have
Jeff.
been, and they couldn't have been more opposite. I mean, Martha was a very calming soul. When you came into the store, she would ask you, well, what are you looking for? Da, da, da. How's your Aunt Rose? How's your mom? You know, and
Yes.
Franny would follow you around the store because she was convinced that the only reason you were there was to shoplift something. That no matter how young you were and how well she knew your mom or dad or aunts or anything, that she was convinced that when you were coming in, you would add a boost. You would add
She was New York smart. That's what she was.
yeah. There was two checkout counters, the old time cash registers, and there was also a certain smell to the place.
Yes.
There was an aroma. There was no food there to be sold or anything like that.
No,
Unlike
just,
in Woolworths, where you had the lunch counter
right.
with the balloons that you would pop and get the price of your banana split. But in the but they had just different everything. It was a Walmart in 1/8 of the space.
Yeah,
There was
they had everything.
Everything was in that store. If you
Plus
needed
lunch,
something
everything plus lunch.
in Woolworths and Kresge's and those places, yeah. Now, as I said, McLaren's didn't have a lunch counter, but what they did do at one point, I remember. I don't know why I remember this so clearly, but McLaren's was situated between Color Age, which was a paint store, and this bar that was on the corner that had an entrance that went out to the corner. And I remember even as a young kid coming home on a Friday or Saturday night, we'd go out for ices or go to the World's Fair or something like that. And there'd always be a fight going on in front of this place. There would always be cops there. There would always be people out in the street. The typical what a fight looks like in a bar.
Alcohol may have been involved.
Yeah. And I remember going into the McLaren's. The bar closed. The McLaren's bought or rented the part out that used to be the bar so they could expand their store right out to 84th Street. And I remember going in there while they were building it, and they had bathrooms in the back, and I had to use the bathroom. So I asked Franny, could I use the bathroom? She said, oh, yeah, use that bathroom there because they, So, and I think she stood outside the door to hear if I was stuffing anything in my pants. But I remember walking in and seeing like the urinal was like blood red colored. Not the whole thing, just it looked like somebody had pissed blood onto the urinal. And it was I mean, to this day, that image has stuck with me. And it's amazing.
How old were you? 10 years old?
6,
Wow.
7. Something like that. I mean, I wasn't that old. It was like 62, 63, something like that. So, yeah, I was like 6 or 7 years old. I remember that, I remember I went there and I wasn't supposed to cross Northern Boulevard.
Oh.
And I crossed Northern Boulevard because I remember when I got home, my mother asked me, I think actually Franny may have called my mother and said, your son crossed Northern Boulevard. And, I know that you don't like him to cross Northern Boulevard. She had that New York Italian kind of accent. And so when I got home later that day, because I think I went from McLaren's to the park and then from the park home, what were you doing? My mother was there. What were you doing on the other side of Northern Boulevard? I wasn't on the other side of Northern Boulevard. Oh, yeah, you were. Franny called me from McLaren's.
Oh, yeah, you were. Oh, yeah, you were.
Those were the days where you really couldn't do anything in the neighborhood. You didn't need video cameras. People would pick up the phone and call your parents and say, your kid was just here, bought a bologna sandwich.
Doesn't that fly in the face of everything that people would assume about New York, that you don't know who lives next door to you? You don't have any neighborly relationship. You knew everyone.
Yeah, you knew. That whole thing was a myth. Now, there was a point where people didn't do that anymore. They didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to care. They didn't want to, and that all came about kind of in 1964 with the murder of Kitty Genovese.
Yeah.
Who was a nationwide, was a phenomenon that was really reported nationwide because they said that many neighbors watched her get killed and
or heard
her screams at night and just pulled down their shades. They didn't want to get involved.
Well, I can tell you that I lived on West 86th Street and West End, and we heard some woman screaming in the street. I think she had been an attempted robbery, which is in a residential, quiet, dark neighborhood. nothing going on West 86th Street at past 9 o'clock at night. And we heard her screaming and lived on a ground floor apartment and dashed into the street. And we weren't the only ones. And the interesting part about that is, didn't think about it in terms of Genovese, which was such a famous case of a terrible night where people did not react to something like that. And I think it might have spurred New Yorkers to be more aware, to the point where if something happens on the subway, you're not on your own. If something happens in your neighborhood, people will respond. And you ask yourself, well, what good does it do for a grandma to run into the street? Well, if she's got her spatula with her, you'd be surprised what she might be able to accomplish or defend herself. And also it gives everyone's pause that New Yorkers are not oblivious to danger and will react to it because they faced it themselves probably a time or two.
Right. Even if you pick up the phone and call, matter of fact, there was no 911 back then. It was the number was 440-1234. That was the number you call for the police. 440-1234. I remember that like it's crazy, but I remember it. And before that, it was Spring 3100. That was the that was the number that you called if you wanted the cops that would connect you to the dispatcher downtown, where they would send the cop from the precinct house, or you called your local precinct. You always had the number of your local precinct by the phone. So if you need to call a 114 to the 110 to whatever precinct you lived in, you could call them direct. And
isn't that an interesting word, precinct? You look at the way it's spelled. It ends with a CT. I mean, it's a strange word. It must be French or something. I don't know.
I think it is French. Yeah, I think it is because they have in New Orleans they have precincts. They have,
okay.
But I think they use them for voting as opposed to just the police work.
Because there's a whole over in New York from a lot of old Dutch words from the Knickerbocker days and the Wall Street days when it was a Dutch colony.
Yeah,
but not much in the way of French words that survive precinct. It must be a police thing that I'm not aware of. Someone will tell me.
Yeah,
I'll look it up.
Yeah, somebody will come up with that. If nothing else, somebody's probably sitting around going, "I'll show these guys I'm smart," and they'll go to Google and
go back to Woolworths for 1 second. I almost ended my speaking career in Woolworths one day. You know how the little toys are in the bins that you talked about? I looked up and looked into the bin and I saw a plastic clarinet about this long, different colors,
Oh,
had a kazoo in it. I pick it up. My mother says, "Don't run with that." What do? I put it in my mouth and go running around the corner, fall down, jab the clarinet into the back of my throat. Could have killed myself. Could have ended my singing, speaking, and communication career in one swell foop. And I don't know how badly I injured myself. I don't remember the injury at all. I remember running and being embarrassed that I couldn't stay on my feet. I was terribly embarrassed.
Those wooden floors.
Those damn wooden floors. They claimed another victim. I remember them romantically, but it's only because I couldn't keep my feet on them. Anyway, don't run with a plastic clarinet in your mouth is my rule from now on. I'd never run with a clarinet in my mouth.
Well, it's like running with scissors, you really don't want to.
It will happen anyway. If it can happen, it will happen, and it'll happen in Woolworths in front of everybody.
Right. Now to go back to the Republicans a second. I mean, they're like the. You could sit there and you could tell them that there's this and that, but if it doesn't fit there, and you know what, I'm not going to say just Republicans. I know Democrats who are the same way. I know people that now, again, they vote Democratic, whether they're tried and true Democrats and so on and so forth. I don't know. I didn't ask them who they vote for all the time, but I know people who, tend to lean to the left and still are not convinced that that climate problems are real. And if you're not convinced by now, if you don't, as you advance on in your years and see how much this planet has changed in just the time that we have been alive, and I'm 67, so I mean it's not that long of a time span, but the planet has changed so much. For these people to deny that there's something going on and it needs to be addressed is pure selfishness.
The new cartoon in the New Yorker has a family sitting on their roof, surrounded by floodwaters, with bare trees and devastation to the horizon. And the guy looks at his phone and says, "Ooh, looks like Congress is going to do something about TikTok."
It's true. It's true because they spend all this time. Listen. What was the Republican agenda that got them elected in the last midterm election to a slight majority in the House? We're going to take care of the problems.
Crime.
On the first, crime and this and that and the other thing are going to be taken. We got a plan. We have a plan to take care of all of this stuff. And yet their leader is out inciting riots.
Death and destruction is to quote him this morning. He's predicting death and destruction as a result of the maltreatment that he's have to suffer here in his home country of America.
His minions have not made an improvement in one thing, have they? Can you point to me and tell me anything that the Republicans have done that improves our country?
Well, remember, Vinnie, the very people who came after crime and the border as issues in the midterms decided to go into a presidential election with no platform. So it's better that way, quite frankly, so we can judge them by their platform. What do they stand for? Nothing. What have they done? Nothing. What will they do? Nothing. What are they going to vote on this next bill? They're going to vote no. And that's it. That's the summation of what they have in plan. Then they're going to wear their drip dry short sleeve shirts into Congress to do inquiries into the Justice Department and be told very politely that they have no jurisdiction there.
Well, you will see, now that they've decided to investigate everybody. They've just decided that they're going by Social Security number, and if you're alive, if you haven't showed up on that I'm dead register for Social Security that you can go online and look at, they're going to investigate whoever it is. They're going to investigate you. And
I think I'll take the fifth.
It's so ridiculous. Instead of, listen. People bought their bull, okay? A certain amount of people bought their bull. And so if you have a chance to fix something, why don't you fix it? Because that's not what they're about. More got done in the 2 years after Biden got elected. And he had the Democratic, he got more stuff accomplished, more things done in 2 years with those people, with the other people derailing and deriding him at every possible turn.
But then they picked the right guy. When they picked Donald Trump, they said, "Look, you've been impeached twice. We don't think it can get any worse. What do you think? Can you commit to making it worse?" He said, "Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I commit to making it worse. It's going to be more dangerous. There's going to be more people put in jail. There's going to be more people accused of crimes. I'm going to call for death and destruction, and for demonstrations, and for unrest, and for chaos. So yes, make me your president. I can make things worse than I did before. Worse yet. And we'll burn books. Yeah, we will burn books. Of course we will, to stay warm."
Well, we'll leave that to our friend DeSantis in Florida, who the only comic relief out of this whole thing is that Trump possibly hates DeSantis more than he hated Obama.
More than he hates me, more than he hates you, Vinnie.
It must be tough going through life hating everybody.
At least you know what you're going to do when you get up in the morning.
But what a way to wake up. I get up in the morning. I don't think about who I'm going to hate today. I don't think of who I'm going to screw today. I think of things like, boy, what would be a great new feature for drive time? Or what can I wake up? Who can I call today and check in on, make sure that they're doing okay? What thing of beauty can I observe today? And what do I have to do today to make my world and the rest of the world a little bit of a better place? I mean, that's generally. I mean, some days I get up pissed off. Some days I get up waking up from a dream and I go, "Oh, wait a second."
I hate it when those dreams stay with you all day long.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't get up, and I'm never going to say that I've never been like that, because I have been like that at times in my life where I've gotten up and it's been like I'm filled with hate. I'm filled with rage. I'm pissed off at whoever gets in my way on that particular day. But as I've gotten older, I've learned that that's no way to be. That it takes, the biggest thing it takes is a toll on you, instead of the people that you're disliking, because they're not even sure that you hate them, so they go on their merry way.
The funny thing about being hateful is you have to one up the people who are hateful around you. You think that's hate? I've got more hate than you do. Which has led us now, Vinnie, to people in our business, talk show hosts like Michael Savage, calling for assassinations, calling for the elimination of certain people. If there are people in the Democratic Party that vex you, that have always set you off, if you've always hated Obama for being black and being the president, forcing himself on your family as a black president, embarrassing you among your white supremacist friends because he was black, we just eliminate him and his family and those that supported him. And we'll be right back after this message. Be sure to take care of our sponsors. Buy those burgers, buy those tires, buy those transmission jobs at Biff's down at the corner, because he supports the kind of hate talk that I specialize in. We'll be back with more people to add to the murder list right after these words from our sponsor. Biff, take it away.
Yeah, I don't understand. Well, I'm going to say I don't understand. I do understand it. I don't understand how you could continue to live like that. How your whole life could focus so much on who you're going to hate today and who you're going to encourage other people to hate. It's, because, excuse me, my sister-in-law, my late sister-in-law used to say, I think her favorite saying was "misery loves company," but she was French, so she would say it, "Misery loves company." It
sounds better that way.
Yeah, it's anything the French say usually sounds better. Really, I mean, if there's one thing you can positively say about the French, it's that whenever they talk, whatever they're saying sounds better. They can tell you that you're dying, but you are going to leave this world in the not too distant future. Oh, thank you. Okay.
We're seeing the romantic mixed with the militant side of our French brothers and sisters these days as they take over Paris. Paris is burning over a retirement age.
Well, my daughter has been over there for the last 2 weeks, and it's been a wild scene, but it's
tough because the banks are closed.
Yeah, but it's concentrated in was concentrated in one area until day before yesterday, when they decided to go out to the airport and block people from getting to the airport.
Charles de Gaulle.
Which I don't know, did they go to Charles de Gaulle or did they go to Orly? I thought they might have gone to Orly. Okay. But so you saw all these people, walking on the freeway or the highway or whatever they call it there, with the motorway with the bags, because they had to get to their planes. So you have this like exodus of people who are, have jumped out of taxi cabs and left the guy there. Here you go.
What am I supposed to do with this Peugeot? Take it back to my apartment, please.
Or they're rental cars. And they're, because that's what you do in France. You just leave it there and wait for somebody else to get it. So the tow truck drivers, the Lyft drivers are busy towing cars off of the highway. And it's, it's a mess. But she's been over there and says, you know what? It wasn't, nobody was running around fearing for their life. Or, they were just out in the street, burning cars and breaking into Mercedes dealerships.
Yeah, the streets
belong to the people. To do here.
It looked like the people were not enjoying it, but there was a dark festive aspect to it.
They're not happy about. If you could imagine this, they're not happy about uh, moving their retirement age to 64. What is it here now? 82.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, you have to die, and please leave the body in the street. We'll collect them on Thursday.
and these are people who take 2 hours a day in the middle of the day to go home, drink a half a bottle of wine, eat
Take a
some
nap.
cheese and bread, take a nap, and then go back to work.
Well, they have a sophisticated idea about what work is and how much of it should take up your day. And they have this idea also about retiring early and enjoying life, because that's what they've majored in, enjoying life. Italians, in the same way, in a different way, but in a similar way, have said, we too are going to enjoy life. And here's how you do it. You got to have pasta. Okay. First of all, you got to have a sensible breakfast. You got to have a workday that's livable. Go home, have a siesta. If Americans don't understand this and don't want to do it, that's really up to them. But they're wasting their time working at the job because your boss hates you and doesn't appreciate the work you do. So understand that the life is yours to live. Enjoy it. Work a little bit. Go home. Have some cheese. See you later.
Yeah,
Au revoir. Au revoir.
it seems kind of funny to me that again that people. But listen, these people seem to have it down. People say, "Oh, well, they pay much more in taxes than we do." Yeah, but they work less than we do. It's not. They're not treated like animals. Here we're treated like animals.
There's a special brand of French red tape that is pretty extensive. It's like you have to have an advisor put you through all the social programs because they're constructed to frustrate you in a very French way. Nope, we cannot change that. No. Paperwork, do it again.
Oh yeah, I think most European countries are like that. I mean, I know that the dual how do I say it? The request for Italian citizenship is like being a fat guy taking a horse out onto a steeplechase, and trying to jump all the barriers and the hoops that they've set up for you. It's not an easy process.
No.
They want you to reclaim or to claim your birthright citizenship, but they sure as hell don't want to make it easy for you.
It has to be done their way. And I laugh at that because it's kind of funny. It can be streamlined, but they don't want to streamline it. It can be fixed, but they don't want to fix it. It can be easier, but that's not the way. You earn your stripes. And probably the best way to learn how to fill out the forms to access social programs in France is to talk to somebody who's already done it, because if you do it the first time on your own, you're certain to fail. It's impossible. It's like going through a maze.
You don't do it. It's simple. It's like getting elected to the Hall of Fame. It's very tough to get elected on the first try. What made him better on the fourth try than he was on the first? Well, nothing really. We just wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to get it on the first try.
What we have to understand is not what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame or what kind of ball player it requires or what sort of career you have to have. You have to understand that it's sports writers and sports commentators that are preventing people from getting in the Hall of Fame. They stand in the way of great players being recognized because they're what? They're reporters, they're writers, they're beat writers, they're people who have seen possibly too much baseball and now don't like the game anymore, or the people who play it.
Or usually they're pissed off because a guy didn't give him an interview, a guy didn't make time for them when he came to their city to talk to them.
That'll happen.
Maybe. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons that sports writers will not elect somebody or vote for somebody on the first ballot. They have to prove that they have to set an example and say that there's a certain way that you have to conduct yourself to get into the Hall of Fame. And I don't know what's worse, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the Baseball Hall of Fame, because at least with the Baseball Hall of Fame, I know who to point the finger at. I'm
Well, I think
absolutely not sure who you point the finger at in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
well, their bylaws turned out to be a deal with the devil. You can't just keep voting in 10 new people every year for 20 years and have anybody left to vote in. So now you go voting in people who don't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They belong in their own Hall of Fame, or a Songwriters Hall of Fame, or a Producers Hall of Fame, or an R&B Hall of Fame, or a Hip Hop Hall of Fame. And it gets to the point where Gary Puckett and the Union Gap are going to be like the best group on the list, and the rest of them will be Archie Bell and the Drells. Who's going to be on the list next time that had one or two hits, but didn't have the career that can be measured like the Rolling Stones or Springsteen or the Drifters or Dusty Springfield or Dionne Warwick. Name a big star from the past 50 years who has been neglected. Not
Neil
that many of them. Not okay. Good example.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy that was a rock and roll hit machine,
and he was a factor for other people's careers as well.
Right.
He was a creator.
Not only did he write hit records for himself, but he also, along with Howie Greenfield, wrote hit records for almost any. I mean, you look at any week between 1959 and 1965, and there's probably a Sedaka Greenfield song somewhere in the top 100.
And when Elton John had his own label, Rocket Records, he signed Neil Sedaka because fellow piano players. And he also, whether he knew Neil Sedaka or not, he knew his work and he knew his playing and he knew his creative side. And he said, this guy has got songs left in him. Let's have a hit record together. And they did.
And they came out with not only one hit record, but a bunch of hit records. And I saw Neil Sedaka a couple of times in that period in the 70s when they did Bad Blood and Laughter in the Rain, and the revisited version, Break It Up Is Hard to Do.
Elton John did that also with Leon Russell late in his career. Brought him back, did a great album with him. I think it's called The Union, and Leon Russell was dead a couple of years after that. Unfortunately, he's passed on, but he doesn't sound near death on that album. He's played beautifully, and he sang with his distinctive style. The two of them wrote songs together and put out a really good album. Once again, Elton John finding an affinity with another keyboard player who had a very distinctive style and had his way, and made a lot of hit records for himself and for other people like Joe Cocker, and the list goes on. I have an album of Leon Russell playing harpsichord and Glenn Campbell playing 12-string acoustic guitar. And it was like they did folk rock instrumentals. It's you can find it on Spotify.
Leon Russell was one of the mainstays of the Wrecking Crew. Yep. Which was which is the band that was on almost every record you heard that was done on the West Coast from 62 or 63.
Number one call in LA was Larry Knechtel. You remember that name probably. Yeah. He was the keyboard player. Leon Russell came after him. And Leon was good for doing arranging for a large group. And if you remember, he had that very distinctive gospel style Southern piano thing that was infective. It was the whole basis for the Joe Cocker road sound. He went on with Mad Dogs and Englishmen. It was that Leon Russell piano that set the direction. If they were doing any of Joe Cocker's big hits, Once While Traveling Across the Sky,
Space Captain.
Yeah.
And if you really want to hear Leon Russell shine on that album, listen to and probably everybody knows this as a Carpenter song, but originally Superstar was done by Rita Coolidge with Leon Russell playing piano, and it's one of the most beautiful piano pieces you'll ever hear somebody play on a rock and roll stage.
He could milk it with a lot of schmaltz. He could really put it down.
Yeah,
He's a
he
great
knew how to
player.
hit that last key. Wait for, like Rose Marie said in her biography, wait for the laugh. He was wait for the final note.
Yeah.
And yeah, it, yeah, Leon Russell was one of the greatest. There's a video on YouTube of Leon Russell in a theater in LA. I think it was a PBS special
Mm-hmm.
that was probably done in either the late 70s or early 80s. And it's a beautiful tribute. Uh, I don't know if somebody plays on their own stuff. Is it a tribute? It was a
It can't be.
yeah. It can't be a tribute. Although I know many rock and rollers who would tribute themselves. But it was just a wonderful example of his work, of how he was able to move between genres and skirt kind of many things that were going on. I mean,
And he was
if
an
you,
unlikely guy too, because like Dr. John, he really couldn't sing, but he made it work.
but boy, his what was I guess his most popular song? I can't remember the title of it right now. But yeah, Leon, but his voice popped out at you.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't like everything else. I remember I went on a media drive, I don't know, several years ago, and they pair you up in the cars, and I paired up with this young woman from LA, and maybe she was 25 at most.
Right.
We're riding along, and she says, "Do you mind if I put something on?" Yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out. You know. So she puts on this. She puts on Leon Russell,
Huh.
and I go, "Yeah, it's Leon Russell." And she goes, "Oh yeah, I love Leon Russell." And
Wow.
she like went into, and her iPod or whatever it was at the time, her music machine was full of Leon. We did the whole media drive listening to Leon Russell.
Wow.
It was just one of those cool things where somebody you expect to be blasted out like the Britney Spears or something like that comes out with that profound moment where you have immense respect for them. And you're expecting to, oh yeah, okay, knock yourself out, and then she knocks you out with what she puts on. It was great. It was one of the funniest and most fulfilling media drives that I'd ever been on. I don't even know if I remember what. Well, actually, I do remember. It was for Kia. It was a
Kia.
Kia media drive down near San Diego. Um, have you been checking out the Daily Show at all with Al Franken this week?
No. Tell me about it.
It's really, really good. He got off to a slow start. His first 2 days, he looked like almost uncomfortable and almost to the point where you kind of looked at him and said, maybe he's lost a beat,
Yeah.
But I guess he warmed up to it pretty quickly because the last 3 days have been great, spectacular.
If you're Al Franken, you probably don't know who you are. Am I a politician, or am I a performer, or am I a writer, or am I a comedian, or am I a serious
right
person?
now he's a comedian. I mean, he's a commentator. He's a comedian, but he has now such a unique perspective on what he does because I mean, he actually walked the walk.
Yeah.
So he can talk the talk. I mean, he's been there. He knows these people. He had Lindsey Graham on Monday night.
Wow.
Which I thought was, and it was actually a really good, because you could see that they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I was taught a long time ago that don't believe what you see on TV or what you see, because politicians a lot of times are friends, but they take different sides. Now, I don't know how true that is anymore, but you could see that between Al Franken and Lindsey Graham, there was like a true, I guess, affection, although I don't trust Lindsey Graham as far as I can throw him.
But he doesn't want your trust. He wants your vote. That's all.
Yeah, he wants your vote. He wants to be right. But if you get a chance to, I guess tonight will be the last night. But if you go back and you look on YouTube, there's some really good stuff there. I really enjoyed. I'm sad to see him because they're doing like
Right. A week and
1
a week
week
and a week.
stints. I'm still expecting my phone call any moment now to go in there and host. He especially did a Al Looks at Trash, where he did a piece on where the trash in New York City goes. Like you put it out at night, well, where does it go?
Where does
They
it
load
go?
it into the truck. And Al went along. He went on a trash run with a garbage truck in the West Village, and he went to the transfer station where they load it onto the boats and take it to first to Staten Island and then to Buffalo. It was
What do they do with it in Buffalo?
probably sell it as chicken wings.
It can be delicious if prepared correctly.
I would have to say that if you've been to the Acme bar in Buffalo, would have the chicken wings. If you've been there, and I have, it's
garbage. I'm telling you, it's garbage. Garbage, ladies and gentlemen.
Who was the guy we used to talk to in Buffalo? Ilio DiPaolo. Remember Ilio DiPaolo?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, he passed away. Well, he didn't pass away. He got killed. Somebody ran him over.
That'll do it.
Yeah, I think out in front of his restaurant. But remember, we used to call Ilio when the Seahawks were playing Buffalo, or then
in front of your what a way to where did you die? Well, I went out to have a cigarette in front of my restaurant, got run down by a Chevy 2.
Imagine by a Nova.
By a Nova.
I get hit by a Nova. But the restaurant, I think, is still going. And I went there a couple of times when I was back in Pittsburgh. I went to Buffalo and stopped at Ilio DiPaolo's.
What kind of wings did you have? The super hot, or did you want something more?
I didn't have wings there. I had Italian food. I had wings at the Anchor, not the Acme. It's the Anchor bar in Buffalo, and that was an interesting place. I was there a couple of times actually. I used to like to go to Niagara Falls when I was up there. When I was in Pittsburgh, because it's not that far a drive. It's only I don't know, 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
All my time in New York, I never had a car, so I didn't take those daily trips like that. So I never got to Buffalo.
Buffalo. Well, Buffalo's a long, long, long ride. We used to go up there when we were kids because I had a couple of friends that went to school at SUNY Buffalo. And they would always call us, "Oh, man, you got to see the girls up here." So naturally, we would get in the car and drive the thruway in the snow. What they told you about the girls, they didn't tell you about the snow.
No.
And how much
you don't have to see the
snow was in Buffalo. I never seen that much snow in my life before. I mean, it was just, it was 6 feet high everywhere you went.
Well, come on out and take part in the bomb cyclone if you want snow. We got lots of places to choose from. Go try to get to Mammoth Mountain and see what happens.
I'm good with snow, Mikey. If I don't see snow again until next year, I mean, I like when I see it in the middle of winter. Like if it comes in December, January, it's kind of cool. But even the snow ain't the same as it used to be.
What I hate is not the snow, although I hope I've done my last winter in the snow. It's the ice. When they say, "Come on out," I'm not coming out because there's ice somewhere. No, there's no ice. It's just snow. Are you sure? Yeah, come out.
I don't have the balance anymore. I this last time when we had the ice storm here, I slipped and fell a few times, and I was like, you know what? I'm just staying in the house.
It hurts so hard because you always hit your head, no matter what you think you're going to do. Oh, I'll catch myself. No, you won't. You're going to be on the ground before you know what happens to you because there's nothing faster than a fall on ice, and you go down straight backwards. Kablong.
And it used to be having a big ass was, it helped you out. You fell on the ass and you were all right. But for some reason, old fat doesn't protect you like new fat.
No, old fat is unsubstantiated as a protector.
Yeah, it just you go down, and the next thing you know, your pelvis is sticking out somewhere in there, and you got a bruise on your bone, and oh my god!
Last time I fell on the ice in Wenatchee, in my third and last winter there, I was walking down the hill from my house to work, and I hit a frozen patch in the tire tracks.
Yeah,
I wasn't walking on the sidewalk because the sidewalk was buried. So I was walking down the tire tracks, hit a frozen patch underneath the thing, whoop, bonk, land on my back, hit my head on the street. I'm lying there going, I can't believe this has happened to me again. And a car comes by and just goes around me and, throws crap, road mung in the air, covers me. He gets to the bottom of the hill. He looks back to see if I'm okay. Yeah, he's alive. He takes a right turn and is gone.
Didn't even offer you a ride, huh?
I didn't know what I expected him to do. Just don't run over me was all I ask. But it just added to the humiliation to be checked on by a motorist and going, he looks okay. Off we go.
It's
And I'm going through that first 60 seconds after you hit your head on the street.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It has the back of my head. Am I bleeding? Is my brain's all still in my helmet? I mean, what's going on here? And then you say, okay, I'm alive, so I may as well keep going.
I missed the game last night. I missed UCLA and Gonzaga.
Oh, you did?
I saw the
highlights.
missed
a game. You missed a game.
Yeah,
you're talking about a game. That was the two games I saw last night. Kansas State and Gonzaga, UCLA, were both incredible games. The Kansas State, that little point guard out of New York City, man, that guy is unbelievable. He knows how to run a free. He's going to be a star in the NBA. I think he's like 5'6" or something, 5'8".
And it doesn't seem to work. There's no disadvantage to being 5'8". It turns out to be it's a gift to him. He's a 5'8". You wouldn't want him any taller because he would ruin the league.
Well, he's close to the ground. He sees the game in a different. It's like guys like Muggsy Bogues. They used to see the game in a different perspective.
Underneath the traffic.
Right. They're looking at everybody's letters, but they're seeing where hands are. Other people are looking for eyes. He's looking for hands, and he's looking for a foot that's out, that's pointed in a certain direction. So he knows if he throws the ball in that direction.
And beating Michigan State is not going to be easy because that was an accomplished team, and they gave it to him. They took it to him, I should say.
Yeah. The Tom. Yeah. I mean, listen, with Tom Izzo, he's always going to have an ability to to figure you out. And
last night he gave quite a compliment to that kid from New York. He said he mesmerized us.
Yeah, he was
mesmerized by him.
He was worth the price of admission right there, man. He really was. And the Gonzaga game, it was just so exciting because Gonzaga looked like they were dead in the water in the first half.
They've been coming out slow, haven't they? They've been coming out slow.
Yeah.
The whole tournament.
But you had this feeling of just hang on, just don't shut this thing off. Don't write them off because they're gonna come back.
Julian Swarthmore, or whatever the kid's name is.
Yeah, and Timmy and his crew. I mean, they put on a show last night. They put on a clinic, but UCLA also put on a clinic, and these guys were going shot for shot. And it's funny because in the end, it wasn't the superstars on both teams, and both teams have superstars. Jack is on the one and Timmy on the other. It was the second guy and the third guy that made the crucial baskets, that had the crucial blocks, that had the crucial steals, that gave Gonzaga the game.
Those Zags are a fascinating team. There's nothing about them that says Washington State. There's nothing about them that says we're from Spokane. They have a completely unique, otherworldly identity. They're from all over the place. The kids are from everywhere. And they go to this little school in a remote area, and how they maintain their excellence is just fascinating to me because every year they come back and say, well, who's the best in the nation? Oh, this year it's going to be blah, blah, blah. What about Gonzaga? Who knows? We'll get a look at them in the preseason.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what they're doing. They're like an entity to themselves. Where do they get their players? How do they recruit? Why do they have guys from France or the Caribbean or Africa on the team? Where do they get their contacts? What sort of planet are they playing on? There's the Gonzaga basketball planet.
Well, and it's easy just to attribute it to Mark Few,
Yeah.
their coach, who we're both familiar with. But I will also say that they did that when Dan Monson was there before him. Few was his assistant, and Dan left for what he thought was greener pastures in Minnesota. But he never accomplished what he accomplished.
Plus, who gets a perfectly good gopher and makes it golden? You don't have a golden gopher.
Well, if you have spray paint, you do.
Well, hi, Phil Swift here. Welcome to the family of products. We spray paint our gophers. You can spray paint your gopher too with a family of products.
Phil Swift and his family of Flex Seal products. Boy, who was the guy? Oh man, who was the guy that was on like every infomercial as seen on TV commercial? Remember then he had the big Coke problem and then he died. His name is escaping me now.
Bill Cullen.
No, it wasn't Bill Cullen. He had polio, but he died, but it's not the same guy. But it was that guy, and it was on like every infomercial in the 80s and 90s. And but there seems to be a really bizarre curse of the TV pitch man. I mean, you go out and you look at Billy something was the guy, and he was advertising everything.
Yes, Billy somebody, and he died young.
Well, yeah, he had a heart attack because he had a serious coke or speed problem or something.
Too much blow, out you go.
Too much blow is not good for you. Billy.
I know who you mean.
Yeah, the guy I'm talking about. He looked like
Sands?
every man.
Was it Billy Sands?
No. But anyway, but he
fell to the curse.
Pitch guys seem to have something that because you look at him and he had that problem. Then you got what's his name, Sticky Frito there from the Pillow Company. He's
Pillow.
Yes, from the Pillow Company. He seems to have his problems as well. I think there's just a curse on these television, these television pitch guys.
You remember the guy who did ShamWow? He was like a carnival.
Yeah, Vince, the ShamWow guy.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. God knows what he ended up doing. Probably he'd be a morning DJ in San Jose.
He was on another product. I saw him for a couple of weeks on some other product. The problem is he's so identified with ShamWow that
I love that you can hardly find these guys anymore. But if you go to a county fair, you find a guy with a little microphone right here, and he's got a booth.
They're still around. Yeah,
talk, just talking and talking.
Pans or a mixer or a vacuum. My mother bought a Kirby vacuum from one of those guys. My father hit the freaking roof. I'll never, ever forget that. This guy got her we went to the Danbury State Fair in Connecticut. And this guy got her, and she was looking, and he was singing Papa Tupa. So she gives him the address. He comes over the house, and I remember he did the bed demonstration. You ever see the bed demonstration?
He was under the bed, won't come out.
No, no, that's only if Dad comes home early. No, they take the vacuum and they put it on the mattress. And then they open up the bag and they show you this is ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And they dump it out on the bed. And there's the, the remain, what they say is the remains. They don't tell you that they preloaded the bag with
They
dust.
preloaded it with terrible
My,
things.
and so my mother is like, oh, she's like gonna buy this damn Kirby vacuum, and my old man comes home and he just hits them. He says, you call him up and you tell him to come get this piece of. Now, I don't know if Kirby was a good vacuum or a bad vacuum, but I'm going to tell you something. Dorothy Richichi was never going to know if it was a good or bad because, if it didn't fall off a truck, my old man didn't have it in the house.
Well, what I want to know is why didn't she show him the bed demonstration? That would have made him a believer right there for sure.
Because I really don't think the bed demonstration worked. If I mean, what housewife goes around saying, "Oh, let me see if I really get ashes out of the other bed."
Welcome home, Mr. Richichi. There's a strange man in your house vacuuming your bed with your wife.
Yeah, well, we're going to see about that. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I remember he called the guy up and told him to come. The guy says, "Well, your wife signed a contract," and he says, "Well, I'm telling you right now, you can either you can kind of pick this thing up or you can hurl through your window," and
But you got the choice.
Yeah, listen, my father was always one in giving choice. He always believed if he was going to smack you, he'd ask you where you want it.
Did Mr. Kirby come and get the vacuum?
Mr. Kirby came and got the vacuum.
But before I leave, Mr. Richichi, let me show you the vacuum the bed mode. You got to see this to believe it.
My old man just told him, put this crap in the box and get it the hell out of here. And we never heard from Mr. Kirby or the vacuum or the company or anybody again.
That reminds me of a report that came out of the Pentagon this week that you're probably never going to hear of again. Whoever came through with this, a Pentagon military attaché associate who lives in the civilian world. He's a scientist at Harvard, works for the Pentagon and their UFO filings. And he suggested this week that the people who are visiting our planet from other worlds have a giant mothership located somewhere in the solar system so they can visit any of the planets in our solar system. And from this sizable mothership, they send smaller craft to Earth to mutilate cows, scare people in traffic, land in Mount Shasta, keep an underwater base in Antarctica, build pyramids, the kind of stuff that they do.
Yeah. Do they land at Mount Shasta?
And that story, actually, there are many stories of, as I told you, there are more UFO sightings in the state of Washington, your state,
where
you currently reside, than any other state in the nation. And Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, Mount Adams are all prime candidates for the area where these sightings take place.
Wow.
The volcanic protuberances of the Cascade Mountains are rife with UFO, and Mount Shasta is the furthermost mountain in the Cascade Range. It's part of that. So yeah, there's a lot of UFO activity there. But my point is being, we live in such a distracted world that the Pentagon can say there's a mothership in the solar system sending small visitation craft to our planet and other planets in the solar system, and the story goes nowhere.
Well, yeah, because we have an ex-president that's deciding that the best thing to do is to go down to Waco, Texas on the anniversary of that mess, and then also to tell people to get ready to go to arms to fight for him because he's going to get a freaking parking ticket in New York.
For death and destruction. Death and destruction is what I offer you. So when the aliens finally land and declare themselves and take over the government, we're going to say, what took you so long? You say, look, we had the mothership. You wouldn't listen. We visited you in traffic and landed in the mountains and you didn't pay any attention. We had the Tic Tac guys chasing your Navy fighters. You wouldn't pay attention. We've seen the way you treat each other. We didn't want any of that. So the mothership's just going to stay there in orbit. We're going to give advice now and then, but until you clean up your act, we're not going to cut you in on any of the goodies that come from belonging to the Space Federation, to which all the other planets around here belong to. You could be a member, but because of the way you act and the way you think and what you believe, we're not letting you in until you clean up your act. That's the short message. It's up to you. Don't make it on. Don't put it on us. We've already evolved past this situation. We're thousands of years past you in terms of intelligence and technology. We could help you, but we're not gonna until you clean up your act, and you won't. So we're gonna wait.
We can't get people to acknowledge, we can't get politicians to acknowledge that there's global war, that there's a climate crisis. I'm not going to say global warming because it's so much more complex than global warming. We can't get people to acknowledge that there is a vaccine that could prevent them from dying.
A miracle vaccine.
A miracle vaccine that this country developed in 8 months.
Yeah, extraordinary.
It has to be one of the greatest feats of science,
medical achievement, par none,
ever done. I mean, it ranks up there with the heart transplant.
Yes.
It ranks up there with kidney transplants. It saved millions of lives.
Yes.
And yet you have a large section of people who are proud that they didn't take the vaccine.
And hate
that you took it.
And are hateful toward Anthony Fauci. They want him prosecuted for saving lives.
Not just prosecute, they want to kill him.
Well, what would Madame Curie have faced against this crowd? What about the guy who invented penicillin? What resistance would he have faced if he had gone up against this crowd? We would be dying from simple infections on the battlefield if it wasn't for penicillin. But the Republican brain trust would have rejected it as some sort of sophistry devised by the devil and Anthony Fauci to weaken our sperm count.
Well, you know, it's interesting because, again, I don't think it's just Republicans, especially with the vaccine. You had people on both sides. You had the Republicans, and then you had, you know, the people who were anti-vaxxers before that vaccine came out, which there was a lot of kind of liberal people who were saying, don't get your child vaccine. It causes this, it causes that. The vaccine's no good. It's the way the government wants to control you. So you can't hang that one just on the Republicans.
I can hang it on the people who marshaled their full political power to stop the vaccine, and those are the Republicans.
Right. That they did. They finally found something bipartisan. You know, we can get the nuts from the left and the nuts from the right together and form this hate. This hateful consortium against Dr. Fauci.
And when those groups get together, please be closer than 6 feet. Get nice and close and chummy, and communicate all the viruses you have twixt one another, and do it now.
It's an unbelievable, just the idea, the fact that we had this medical miracle that happened. I mean, think if they hadn't come up with the vaccine, where we would be today. If it took them 2 years to come up with the vaccine, where would we be today?
We would have been mastered by fear and loathing. There's no doubt in my mind. There would have been trouble in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people were getting ready for an insane revolution of some kind. Exactly the kind of thing that the former president, the president was the guy who was president at that time, is trying to foment now, because he's going to get a freaking parking ticket in New York for paying off a hooker, for doing something that he did.
For doing something that he did. Why am I in trouble for this? Because you did it. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to Waco this weekend. I'm going to Waco to stir up the people down there. I'm going to see if I can get them really to get their munitions and follow me to the hill.
You know, I don't know if we're ever going to come out of this slimy period that we're in. As we have said for years now, this guy will cause more. It'll take us years to repair the damage.
And he will not
one
stop.
Man has right, and he won't stop.
He must be stopped, however, and that's turning out to be more difficult than I imagined.
No, he listen. I think we knew, Michael, that he wasn't just going to go away. That he is a sick individual. He doesn't stand for people. He doesn't stand for. He stands for himself. And people that can't see that, I don't. What can you say to them? Again, you're sick. Get help.
They're
Get help.
happy. How can they be happy with chaos and unrest and consistent lies and the most egregious criminal attitude toward democracy, and someone who's waiting to get back into office so he can be pals again with Vladimir Putin, who's now on a weird tear? Can there be anybody more negative, darker, more un-American, more undemocratic, more dangerous than Donald Trump? And until he is absolutely physically stopped and removed from circulation, his danger will remain, and it'll always be right around the corner. There'll always be more crap coming, and it won't stop until we stop him.
Yeah, well, again, the biggest pandemic in this country is, as I've said before, will continue to believe, is not coronavirus, but mental illness. And until we can fix the people in this country who are afflicted with mental illness and get them back to some sense of reality, we're in trouble. We don't have to wait for the Russians to take us over, or the Chinese, or the North Koreans, or anybody.
All we have to do, I know it sounds simple and simplistic, and it sounds naive, but there's enough of us, Vinnie. And we've proven this in the 2020 election. We proved it in the midterms. There's enough of us. If we just vote, the sensible people of our planet are with us and have the majority. And we must maintain that majority. We must maintain this edge that we have in terms of voting, and we have to do it consistently. The next election is going to be more dramatic than the previous one, and this may continue throughout our lifetimes, where each election is like a war zone. But the vote still counts, and the sensible people of America are still here in greater numbers than the idiots. And if 30%,
let's hope.
30% want to believe that Donald Trump is sent here by God, then I just have to ask you, please explain to me what this God was thinking. What in the world was God doing that day that he sent Donald Trump? Because it was a terrible, terrible error. He could have sent somebody else. He could have sent, I know, Einstein, I've sent you once before, but I want to send you again. This planet needs you. But no, you don't send us an Einstein. You send us Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a magnet for every negative emotion and every negative knee-jerk reaction that this planet is capable of. Why would any God send Donald Trump anywhere? You wouldn't send him to the corner to get milk. He couldn't do it. He would. There would be trouble, more trouble for it than a little bit, as Bum Phillips would say. You can't do that, and if you do, there's more trouble over it than a little bit.
The evil, evil, evil man, and the stuff that he's put out over the last couple of days has just proven it. He's not for law and order. He's not for anything. And what irks me the most about it is it's 2 years after his presidency, and we're still sitting here, and he is the main thing on CNN and the main thing on all of the news channels. There's no getting away. We're so pumped up with Donald Trump every day, from the people that love him and the people that hate him. And it really, there's times when I just want to point it toward the border, man, and just go. He can't be, I watch the Canadian news a lot, and although he's on that as well, they spend much less time on him. There it's like a natural fascination it's like if, gorilla's still missing from zoo, here's tonight's report on where he was spotted.
I I think that makes sense. I wish I could see the Canadian news. I can see BBC sometimes just to get a different view of the world. But the interesting thing about this revolution of the mind that we're going through, courtesy of Donald Trump, is that we can't put it down. It won't leave us alone. It plays well each and every day. There's some new outrage for those who want him dead, for those who want him president.
It sells newspapers. It sells video. It sells YouTube.
You know what it's doing? Did you see
looks.
that it takes 14 weeks to get a passport now? Because the rush to get a passport is a backup to get the hell out of here if they have to, is stronger than it's ever been. 500,000 a week.
Wouldn't surprise me. I would like to know if the reason that people are getting passports is because of Donald Trump, or is because they just want to travel. But I think that people are. I think people are fed up with what's going on in this country, and I think there's some kind of change that has to happen. Something somewhere along the way has to give. I don't know that either side has come up with the best answer for it yet, but somewhere there has to be an answer for it, because it's stressing people out, man. People are getting stressed out over
They don't know how to act in public anymore. They don't know how to maintain their decorum.
People are mean to each other, and we just got to get past a place where politics takes up so much of our lives.
Well, it's beyond politics, because to choose a side with politics, you have to decide: are you educated? Do you resent education? Can you accept facts? Do you know what the real news is? Can you defend your positions intelligently? Do you know what you believe in? Or are your beliefs so magical that only someone could believe in them? There's no proof of any of it. There's no proof that Donald Trump has any ability except but to divide and to anger. But the people who love him think that he's going to change the world somehow. And a person who came up with no legislative program whatsoever.
Well, I wish that people in that party would look and say that this guy is a dead end road. That that the hate and what he spews is nothing but destructive. And there are other alternatives, even in the Republican Party, that they can look at and say, I'd rather, vote for this guy, or I'd rather see his agenda or see what he's doing. So far, we haven't seen that person. I mean,
well, what would a Trump person say? I've heard Ron DeSantis, and he's hateful, but he's not hateful enough. Now, he should take a lesson from Donald Trump. He hates everybody, and he hates them all, and he hates them evenly, and he hates them all day long. Ron DeSantis is weak on hate.
Yeah, and he's actually done something. He's actually, whether you like what he's done or you don't like what he's done, at least he's done something.
He chased Disney out of Orlando.
How do you do that? That's got to be interesting. Got to be interesting to do that, man.
And I guess his next thing is to chase the space program out of Cape Canaveral. Get the hell out of here with these rockets and all this gasoline and all these launch pads. Get the hell out of here with your big machines and your tractors and pull stuff around. We don't want your rockets here.
Well, that'll certainly that'll get Elon Musk and everybody else out quickly, right? Because that's pretty much what NASA is these days.
Yeah. Hey, DeSantis, we were going to use those rockets. Not anymore. I don't want that crap in Florida. We're not putting up with it.
It's okay. They'll give us a lot of space in Texas, and even more space in New Mexico. I have no idea why we said
Huntsville, Alabama.
Well, I don't know if we can launch in Huntsville because it's pretty populated around there, I think.
You can just take it down to Mobile.
But, yeah, I mean, Mobile, they let you, the home of Willie Mays and Cleon Jones and Tommy Agee, isn't it, Mobile, Alabama?
Pretty good town just with those three.
Good for baseball. You know. All right. Well, listen, we're
So
not
much
going to
for
solve.
so much for a Freaky Friday, eh, man?
Well, it was a Freaky Friday. Unfortunately, it was freaky in that we have somebody who, once again, is trying to, as we said at the top of the show, push hate around, and sell you hate. And he'll even sell it to you in a gold coin. Send
Just
me
give me.
$99.95.
You can't
And
join me in Waco. Just send me $50, okay? Hi,
yeah,
I'm Donald Trump.
my son will collect your money at the door. Which one? Well, the one that we think can count.
And
Are
we're
we
working
sure?
on that. We're not sure which one is going to be
We're not sure. But it's
because
either Don Jr. or Eric.
Because Eric has his good days, and on those days he can count. But if he's having a bad day, if he's having an episode, not so much.
He can't count. He starts at 100 and goes backwards, and we can't have that going on.
It's like we're putting ether on him. Count back from 100. Count back from 100.
And he never gets to 90.
80 something, 80 something.
92, 90. What comes after? No, that would be before 92, but it's after. Wait a second. It's before 92, but yet I have to say it after. That's not right.
And one last word before we go. Spring training baseball has been entertaining. I don't know who's on the Giants. We lost our first baseman and our third baseman, so we're trying out new infielders from everywhere. I have no idea who's going to be on this team. I have no idea who's going to win the spot. I think Lamont Wade Jr. will probably end up as the first baseman, but we don't know who's going to be at third base. It could be this kid Casey Schmidt that I told you about.
Yes,
or it could be another person that's going to end up in a quick trade. But the San Francisco Giants have changed the team about 80% from last year. Brandon Crawford at shortstop is the only guy you're going to remember. The rest of the team it's a toss-up. We got Jock Peterson in left field. But who else are we going to have? Probably Mike Yastrzemski, but no guarantees. It's a toss-up. I don't know who's going to be on this team.
Well, who's the kid that signed from? I'm forgetting his name now. Why am I'm blanking out on his name? The kid that signed from here.
Romo?
No.
Havlicek.
No. He'd be a little old for baseball right now, wouldn't he? Pete Maravich. Nah, he's too dead for baseball.
He's dead. I'm sorry.
Well, it fits fine on the Giants.
We'll consider him. We'll sign him for a look-see in spring training. But if he's dead, chances are
we're not going to keep him.
Not going to keep him
unless he can hand people towels down the other end of the bench.
We'll send you a ticket. Send him to spring training. But he's dead. Send something. We'll take a look.
Send his glove and his bat, and we'll see if he follows it along.
The number 17, the outfielder.
Yeah, Mitch Haniger. Thank you.
Kipling,
but that's the report.
He'll be playing. He'll start this year.
Yeah, he's a good. He's a good guy. I think San Francisco fans will like him. I'm not sure what we're going to have up here, except that I know we're going to have a World Series caliber pitching staff.
That's a good start.
Yeah, I think I don't know where the runs are going to come from. Very similar to what we saw last year. We're going to have a ton of pitching if everybody stays healthy and if they can get Robbie Ray on track, who they signed to be their number one starter. But the pitching looks great. It's all about can anybody here get on base, and can anybody here can we score? If we hold the other guy to one run, can we score two?
Can anybody here play this game?
And then you're going to have the rule changes, which are going to be interesting. Which Major League Baseball is advertising.
As a come down and see somebody walk.
Come see the 3 new rules.
Come see somebody get called out for doing nothing. What did I do? You're out.
Come see the smoke. You haven't lived until you've seen the Smokey Burgess rule.
Oh God, do I love the 10th inning? God, do I love the 10th inning? Here comes Smokey. He's at second base, pulling up his pants.
Right. And now for the 10th inning, we take out the regular announcers and bring in Mel Allen, Red Barber,
and Lindsey Nelson. Smokey, if he lines one up the alley, can you score from second? I
Yeah.
cannot. I cannot. No
Smokey,
guarantees.
last week Smokey hit a home run over the left field wall there, 218 feet down the line, just cleared the foul pole.
And he's still we know he took off for second, but we haven't seen him come home yet.
Oh man, yeah, it's the new rules will be or the latest rules. The pitch clock is going to be.
It's going to be hell.
That's going to be interesting, man. I I didn't go to a baseball game because I want to be told to move faster. I went to a baseball game because it's slow.
And I know that some pitcher's going to throw his mitt and hat in desperation, get tossed out of a game for throwing a ball that turned out to be an out, that turned out to be the end of his day that day.
The toughest thing I think for fans is going to be learning how to say what you need to say because in 15 seconds, because everybody talks between pitches, right? You're there with a bunch of people, you're talking. Oh, wait a second.
What happened? There's 2 outs. What happened?
It's obvious that Rob Manfred and these people have never sat in the stands. Because those are the people that are going to have to learn how to get used to this game. The person who comes to the ballpark and decides that they're going to tell you everything about their life while you're sitting next to, or even worse, usually in the seats behind them.
I saw the same level of frustration when I watched a documentary on ESPN about the first female sports writers to cover baseball.
Oh, yeah.
How they made an arrangement to send the writers in, and Commissioner Baseball Bowie Kuhn stepped in and said, there will be no women covering any sports in any clubhouse in professional baseball. And that's the end of it. That's the end of it. There will be no female reporters. Mark my words, said Bowie Kuhn. None.
Well, we saw how right he was.
Yeah, he was like that about most everything. Thank you, Bowie. Good job.
And then there was, of course, Dave Kingman, who decided in Oakland in his time there that he was going to show off his stellar personality by putting a rat in a box and giving it to Susan Slusser? To the woman who was covering the Oakland A's.
And you'd think he'd be nice to her. She loves baseball. It was a passion for her.
She's much more competent at her job than he ever was at his.
Yeah, I remember when he came up. He was a third baseman, if you can believe it, for the Giants.
Well, he came full circle because when he was a first baseman for the Mets, nobody wanted to buy the seats behind first base. They thought they'd get hit with a ball because they couldn't catch one.
That's a pity.
Lame.
So Dave King played for and who did he get to work with? The Giants, the A's, and the Mets.
Yeah, wasn't he? Didn't he play for the Yankees for a while too?
I think he did. I think they thought he was going to be a home run factor.
There's another team wedged. Oh, the Cubs. He was with the Cubs for a couple of years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he was with the Cubs, Giants, Mets, Cubs, A's, Yankees. I forget where else. There might have been one other team.
On that road, he should have played for the Angels too, but I don't know if he did.
Yeah, I don't know if he played for the Angels, but
Shohei Ohtani, huh? That's all I'm going to say about that. Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, Shohei, can you see?
Throws 102 miles an hour, hits a home run, wins the whole damn thing. And it turned out to be a team leader. I want him for the Giants. He belongs in San Francisco. He belongs there. Like the day he was born, he belonged in San Francisco playing for the Giants.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him because he's going to be, how much freaking money is he going to make?
$500 million plus.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that the telephone numbers that he's going to wind up commanding. All right, Mikey.
See you, Vinnie.
I will catch up with you Monday if the Lord's willing. The creek don't rise, pal.
Have a good show tomorrow.
Thank you, man. We'll have tons of fun. Tune in at 8 o'clock on tomorrow morning. On tomorrow morning? No. On Golden Pond? No. Tune in tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock for Drive Time Radio, where we'll be trying to figure out how you can lose $3 billion and still stay in business if you're a car maker.
And who was that?
Ford.
Ford. Wow.
Ford lost $3 billion on their electric car business.
Wow. I'm surprised. But I thought they were making those trucks so fast that they couldn't sell them fast enough.
Well,
Electric
that's
trucks.
the problem is they're selling them for a lot less than it's costing them to make them.
Now there's a business plan that wouldn't pass muster. Try
Works
that
for
in
Uber,
Silicon Valley. We're going to spend this much money. We're going to make this much money. We're going to lose money. How about it? Come
but
on.
that's what Silicon Valley is. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Is give us the startup money. We're not going to make money for 10 years, but boy, when we start making money, we'll be making money, real money.
And that's true, except for the fact that they have a 90% failure rate. It's like, oh, you might as well just open a Mexican restaurant because your chances of success are about the same. 90% of restaurants fail. 90% of money that's spent in Silicon Valley as startup goes for naught.
Well, you know what? If I was going to open a restaurant, it'd be Chinese.
Fine with me.
And I would call it, What's Your Name?
What's your name?
What's your name?
Is it Peggy or Sue? And then
Name?
after saying what's your name, he guesses all the names that can possibly rhyme in a song. And she never says, that's it. That's it. My name is Barbara Ann. Ba 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 Barbara Ann.
Do you
No.
like Mugai Gai Pan too? All right, Mikey.
Shooby-doo, ba-ba-da.
Peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby.
See ya. What
See
a
you,
wine.
See you, pal.
Wow.
Let's figure out how to get us out of here. All right, you all take care. See you tomorrow morning.